Does the way we work with the energy of our organs in Qigong practice correlate with physical issues? That is going to be the topic of this episode of Qi Life. Okay, so this is another question that someone sent in, and I thought it's one that's worth talking about. I think the person who sent this question in must be quite new to Qigong practice, because I think this type of question stems fundamentally from a perspective that's quite common for people just early getting started with Qigong. Because they're wondering, okay, this energy that we talk about, is it like a separate thing, but we're talking about it in relationship to things in our body? Like, are they really connected, or are we talking about something quite different? The more we practice Qigong and the more we understand the principles behind Qigong, we come to understand quite clearly that yes, they are directly connected. It's a very practical and clear link. But this does take time and understanding. And yeah, discussing topics like this help us to make those connections and understand what's going on within our Qigong practice. So, to the topic at hand. The short answer is yes, and I'll even add, and of course, the way we work with the energy of our organs correlates to physically what's going on with those organs. Now, one of the cool things with Qigong practice is the connection to things like how our organs are functioning is bidirectional. And what I mean by bidirectional is that if we have an issue with a specific organ, we can do some Qigong practices that we know will affect that organ in a positive way to help bring it back to health, bring it into balance. On the other hand, doing different Qigong practices, because often we'll do whole sets of different practices where we work on a whole number of different things. You know, for example, we might go through and work on each organ one by one within a Qigong practice. And doing these often brings to our awareness when there is an issue. And sometimes that issue can be quite subtle, not the sort of thing that a doctor would typically pick up in their testing or things like that, because they have their, they have their parameters of what's considered normal, and anything in there, that's fine. And it's only when something gets way out of balance that they go, oh, we've got a problem, we better address this. Because within Qigong, we're working with things in a much more subtle way, and particularly because of this focus on energy, a subtle awareness comes from that. We refine this a bit. We go, okay, we're not assuming like there's a major problem, we need to rush to the hospital and get surgery or anything like that, but we're like, oh, actually this is a bit not quite where we want it to be. Let's bring that back into harmony. Or oh, down here, let's bring that back into harmony before it gets outside those bounds and then we have a real problem. This connects to the old, the old story about how Chinese medicine doctors used to work historically back some time ago, where they were only paid while their patients stayed healthy. If they got sick, then they had to work for free to get them back to health. So the idea was very much that they were, again, working within these parameters to keep you nice and balanced, not getting out close to where you'd get really, really sick and have a major problem. Their aim was to keep you healthy, not just treat illness. And I think that's an amazingly positive way to work with our health. And Qigong can be a really valuable tool for doing that. So I'll talk now a little bit about how Qigong does that, just in some really, really practical ways. And this, again, going back to that mindset of like, is this energy we're talking about the same as what's going on physically? It's a bit of a different way of thinking compared to what we're used to. And look, I'm not even going to say from a Western perspective. I'm going to say a modern perspective. And the reason why I'm not going to say Western perspective is because actually these sorts of concepts of having some direct understanding of what's going on within our bodies, and being able to influence them. All cultures had this at some point, going back, including Western culture. Everywhere around the world had some awareness of being able to connect to our body and know what's going on within it. And it's just something we've kind of lost a bit in modern times. We've essentially got so very intellectual and we've lost our connection to physically what's going on inside us and the world around us as well, incidentally. So how does this work in Qigong practice? Well, within Qigong, we can work with our organs in a variety of different ways. I'll mention a few, there's probably going to be others as well. So simply, one of them is putting our awareness, actually just turning our awareness inwards rather than outwards to start to observe and notice what's going on. Now, when we do that, again, people can notice if there's something majorly wrong with their organs, because like, oh, I've got a pain here. Like, oh, they're noticing something major, right? Our aim is to start to notice things before they become major, and so we start to notice more subtly what's going on. And that's something in a modern mindset we're not used to thinking of, that we can actually turn inwards and notice subtle things going on inside our body. But Qigong gives us really good tools for doing that. Tools of meditation, tools of working with our breath to induce certain states of our mind and body that allows us to turn inwards more effectively and start to notice these subtleties. So we can use that with awareness, and then another part of that is then using intention to not just be aware, but start to direct what happens with our energy. So just, using the mind primarily. Another way we can work with the organs in Qigong practice is using physical movement. We use sometimes quite big physical movements to move around in ways that physically massage and stimulate the organs inside. Again, we don't normally think of that. We often, from a modern perspective, we think of massaging the external muscles, but we don't realize, hey, when we move, it's actually physically affecting what's going on inside, and massaging, affecting the pressures there, will then affect the tensions in and around the organs. That affects how healthy they are, how they're functioning. It affects the blood flow, it affects the nerve activity, a very clear, direct physical effect. Another aspect used within Qigong is, again, as we're moving and stretching and things like this, we affect the meridians, the pathways of energy flow that go out everywhere in the body, the arms, the legs, the front of the body, the back of the body, which then have a relationship into the organs as well. And so another step of being a bit more subtle, but by affecting these, we're affecting what goes on in the organs. There are other practices too. For example, sometimes we might use sound, and using different sounds sends the vibrations to different locations in the body. Different parts of the body vibrate differently with different sounds. That vibration has a very clear effect on different organs. Again, and it will change the tensions, it will help things to move through, releasing tension. It'll affect the blood flow, the nerve activity, and so on. And so we have these very clear, direct physical effects from our Qigong practice. And if, for example, an organ is too tense, it's holding, it's jammed up and stiff, massaging it's going to loosen it, get things to flow through, or vibration, it's going to get things to flow through. And this is how, again, just knowing we have a problem, we can use practices that we know will affect that area. But equally, as we do different practices, we're going through like, oh, this feels okay, this feels okay. Oh, this one feels different. Somehow the energy isn't moving quite right in this one. And then we can continue to work with that using Qigong, and it might also be something that we then go further and go, I'm going to look at some other things that I could use as well to help me to keep my organs healthy. And again, not get way out to the extremes where I've got a real problem, but bring it into a healthy state there. So anyway, hopefully this has been interesting, useful certainly for the person who asked the question, and maybe interesting for the rest of you as well to understand a little bit more about how Qigong works. If you're interested in some practices that specifically relate to these aspects of working with the organs, one practice that is really, really good is the 12 Rivers Qigong practice. Within that, there's one movement for each of the main organs from the Chinese system within the body, where we do specific movements that stretch and open and massage the organs, and this then affects things like the emotions connected to the organs as well. That's another level of detail, understanding how those tie together. So that's a really good practice to start to understand this link in a very direct, practical, physical way. Another practice you might be interested in is some sound practice. I mentioned that a couple of times as well, where we use vibration to vibrate different organs as a way to balance and harmonize the energy within our body too. So you can find Certainly videos of the 12 Rivers practice on the Long White Cloud Qigong website. We'll probably put a link to where you can find some videos with that. For that sound practice, actually, if you sign up to the email newsletter on the Long White Cloud Qigong practice, we have some free videos about that sound practice. Yeah, we might put some other resources below that might be useful for you as well. Oh, yeah, that's enough for now. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the vlog. I look forward to seeing you on another one soon.